There's a strange feeling that happens when you leave a place you once called home. Once I was gone for a while, I realized home never actually felt like home. Back in the US, I spent so much of my life believing I had to keep pushing. Work harder, do more, earn more. Somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask myself, do I even like the life I'm working so hard to build? I think I avoided that question because I knew the answer was no. Living here has reminded me that life isn't only measured by promotions or productivity. Sometimes it's measured by cooking a meal from scratch, walking to the market for fresh ingredients instead of rushing through a drive-thru, watching the sky change colors at sunset, creating something with your hands just because it brings you joy. Those moments used to feel insignificant. Now they feel like the whole point. The biggest thing Mexico gave me wasn't slower mornings. It was myself. For most of my life, I looked outside of myself for the answer. What should I do? What would make the most sense? What would everyone else choose? Moving to another country alone doesn't give you that luxury. Every decision becomes yours. At first, that was terrifying. But somewhere between learning a new culture, figuring out transportation, finding homes, solving problems, building routines, and starting over more times than I can count, I stopped waiting for someone else to tell me what to do. I started listening to myself. And every challenge I figured out became another piece of evidence that I was more capable than I thought. Now when something stressful happens, I don't panic the way I used to. I sit with it. Sometimes I make myself a cup of tea. Sometimes I take a walk. Sometimes I just sit quietly long enough to realize I'm overthinking this. When your life is constantly filled with noise, it's hard to tell the difference between your intuition and your anxiety. But when you finally have space, you start noticing which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones don't. You begin to recognize the stories you've been telling yourself that were never true. I've also realized that the way I care for myself changes the way I experience hard seasons. When I start feeling defeated, I don't stay there. I go outside, I journal, I walk, I go to the gym. I cook food that fuels my brain instead of reaching for whatever feels comforting in the moment. I slow down instead of speeding up. Those choices don't magically erase life's problems, but they change the version of me that's facing them. And I've noticed the more I take care of myself, the more life seems to meet me where I am. With a clear mind, I'm able to see possibilities instead of only problems. I stopped making every decision from fear. I gave myself enough peace to think clearly, to create again, to take opportunities I would have been too anxious to see before. Life still surprises me. Things still go wrong. I'll probably always have moments where I wonder, how am I going to figure this out? But that question doesn't scare me anymore, because I've answered it before. There's a quiet confidence that comes from building a life from scratch, from navigating a foreign country alone, from solving problems you never imagined you face. You begin to trust yourself in a way that no amount of advice can teach you. I think that's why I can't imagine moving back. Not because the United States is a bad place, not because Mexico is perfect, but because somewhere between the morning walks, the homemade meals, the slower pace, the uncertainty, and the quiet moments where I finally learned to hear my own voice, I found a version of myself that I don't want to leave behind. This past year changed what I believe a good life looks like. And maybe that's what home really is. Not a country, not a city, but a life that feels true to me. This isn't just a love letter to Mexico. It's a love letter to the person I became because I was brave enough to begin again.